Hello and welcome to the Wealthy Wellbeing Podcast, where we talk about all things health, fitness, real estate, and entrepreneurship. I am your host, Zach Bush, and today I have a special guest, a friend of mine, Nate LaBrusciano. Nate, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Zach.
So we go back a couple of years, I think. At this point, you were the videographer. Did you do photography at SummerSlam when you first came on, or was it just video?
Just video, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we met through that. I think you had initially reached out about filming the event. I had just taken over, so it was kind of a good timing thing. We had never done an official videographer to come in and do it, so I thought it'd be a cool thing to kind of interact with you and then get an actual promo video and kind of get some excitement going on that. So obviously, I know that you're a videographer, that you have your own business doing that stuff, but why don't you give everybody else a little bit of background on who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I've been in video production ever since I graduated college, a little over 10 years ago now, which feels weird to say. I started off in automotive. I did some e-commerce as well. I spent 3.5 years doing e-commerce as a lead video editor for aftermarket automotive parts, which allowed me to learn a lot about the business side and digital aspect of video production, which was incredible knowledge. And then I switched over to content and digital marketing for a gym in Ambler, which was a lot of fun to be able to help people and to be able to use my skill set as in video production to really help people improve their life. And then the money took me more into digital marketing, where I worked for a brewery, which was a lot of fun. Beers, when I travel, I love to explore through the different breweries because it's a great way to meet people. But I realized I was missing out on the storytelling aspect of it. So I went full-fledged into my business about a year and a half ago, roughly speaking. And I've been helping businesses share their stories, share client testimonials, explain their unique offer value to potential clients, educate people, create fun videos that it's just a lot of fun to be able to do, to use your creativity to the fullest extent. So I love that I get to share stories.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's not often that you meet somebody, and that's why I wanted to have you on here, that loves what they do. You know, I think sometimes, it's you love something and it's usually a hobby, and then you're kind of hesitant to make it the full-time thing because it might be something that turns into a job. But it sounds like that's something that you've always loved doing and continue to love doing despite it being your full-time thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember back in high school, what happened was I was going to Plymouth Whitmarsh High School, and a friend was like, take this class. It's really easy. It's an easy A. And it was TV production. I was like, cool. I'm a freshman. Easy A. Sounds great. And my teacher at the time, Mr. Burke, challenged us to be creative in a way. We had to imitate somebody else in the classroom. And this other guy and I just swapped roles, and we had so much fun. And that was the moment for me where I was like, wait, this is what it is. This is what people do, and they make a living off of this. And so ever since that moment, it's really been I've been chasing okay, how can I do this and continue to have fun, but also feed my own personal need of wanting to help others. And I feel like I've just been doing that ever since.
That's awesome. That's funny. That was one of the things I wanted to ask you was, how'd you get into it? I'm always curious how people get into the things that they're doing. And, this is a different thing. I don't meet a ton of videographers, so I didn't know. It sounds like it was just this is going to be an easy class. It wasn't hey, this sounds cool, I'm already interested in it, let me learn a little bit more kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, so it started off as it's an easy class. And then it was, okay, this is actually a lot of fun. And there's a lot more that I can learn about it. Yeah. So I started off freshman year, I took TV1. And then it was sophomore year, it was TV2 or something like that. And then I think my senior year was an independent study and some other type of TV production course that I just I made it up as I went. I'm pretty sure that was an independent study. And I did the same thing in college. Once in my senior year of college, I needed a few extra credits. So what I did was I created an independent study in that study, I was like, okay, I'm going to learn how to pitch a TV show. I'm going to learn how to create a spec episode or a pilot, and I'm going to pitch it. And it worked really well on that. I had an internship at the time, and I got to learn from somebody who has had great success in pitching TV shows. He walked me through the process. I actually pitched him 2 TV shows, 2 automotive shows that I would still love to produce to this day. But they just sit on my hard drive because I'm doing other work right now. Mm-hmm. But I got to marry everything that I was learning collectively into this one passion that I have of storytelling, getting to have fun, getting to hopefully employ friends in this industry that I've gotten to meet along the way. Because the quotes, a rising tide lifts all ships. How can I help rise this tide?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so was the goal always kind of, as you were learning, you took TV production classes, was it always to kind of produce TV shows? Was that always the dream, the hope? And, not that it went wrong, but you just kind of ended up having to go a different way, or ended up going a different way because now you're storytelling for businesses that help people.
And so, I mean, that's another story. I don't think it went awry.
Yeah.
It's different than what I expected. And Philadelphia has a great market for TV production and film production. I remember very vividly in my senior year of college, I was at the National Broadcasting Society's convention out in Burbank. And that is a bunch of colleges throughout the U.S. come together at a specific location and get together for different awards. I hadn't been at the one the year prior where a show that I produced in college won an award for best magazine program. But I went that year in 2014. And a bunch of my friends and I were hanging out in the lobby of the hotel that one night. Guy walks through the lobby, stops, starts talking to us. He's like, "Oh, what are you guys here for?" We explained we're here for the National Broadcasting Society. You have different scripted programs, news programs. Some of us want to be in TV. Some of us want to be in film. Some of us want to be in news. All very different pieces of the same puzzle. And what sticks out to me very vividly from that evening and that encounter was, he's like, "Thank you for what you do. Keep doing what you do because we need people like you." He was an EMT. He said he sees a lot of tragedy throughout the day, and his escape is through watching television. Mm-hmm. And I've never saw that as a way of helping people. Mm-hmm. And if you look back historically, during the Great Depression, cinema was the one thing that did really well because it helped people escape the harshness of reality at the time. And for him, that is what allowed him to escape that harshness, was entertainment. I was like, wow, I didn't know that this could have that type of impact on somebody. Mm-hmm. I know it resonated with me in different capacities, but to be able to affect somebody in that way, that's incredible. Mm-hmm. So what I took away from that interaction was if I can create something meaningful for somebody, whether it's a film, a TV show, a documentary, or a video to help them live their dream with their business, that's great. To me, that is worth more than anything.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I think it's always fun to hear the unintended consequences, or I'm going to say consequences, but unintended things that you don't really know until somebody brings it up to you or points it out to you. And, they weren't necessarily trying to do that for you either. They were just like, "Hey, thank you." And you're like, "Oh, I'd never even considered that." It's always nice getting that every once in a while. Cause sometimes, when things get hard, you don't really know if what you're doing is the right thing. It sounds like you have fun when you're doing it, which is great. But sometimes I'm sure during hard times or, deadlines are coming up and you're kind of pushing through late nights and stuff like that. You're like, is this really worth it? What am I doing this for? And then you hear that and you're like, okay, everything that I've gone through and done has been worth it.
Oh yeah. And I've had my longest amount of work was I think it was 32 hours of work in 36 hours. And after that, I was like, no one should have to do this. Never again. I love what I do, but nobody should have to do this for anything that they do unless it's life or death. Mm-hmm. That is the only time that should be done. And that was not the case for this project.
So when you started this, you took a class in high school. Did it come like, it was fun, but did it come easy to you? Did it come natural to you? Were there some like learning curves and stuff that you had to fight through and really teach and learn a little bit more? Or was it just natural, a little more natural?
That's a great question. I want to say it felt natural, but that's 20 years ago now. Now it feels natural because I've learned to listen to my thoughts and what feels right. But that comes through learning like these textbook things. There's a book called The 5 C's of Cinematography that was recommended to me. I took courses for as long as I could. I still either try to work with people who are better than me or find people on like YouTube just for inspiration, and see what I can take away. I think the best thing that I ever learned was learning how to do linear editing, which not many people know about, especially in this day and age. Everybody works on a non-linear editor, like DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro. I use Adobe, all non-linear. When you hear somebody say tape to tape, that is linear editing. That is like the pre-digital era way to edit films, video, and all that. And what that taught me was an appreciation in the forethought for the planning process, but also to really appreciate the tools that we have now, so that like, it's not that bad. I could be spending hours upon hours scrolling through film trying to get that right frame to start at, select that as the input, scroll to the end, select that as the output, play through, and then like just waste a lot of time as compared to what we have now. But it's the same thing with shooting film. Like, I only recently began shooting on film for photography as a hobby, which gives me a lot more of appreciation for shooting on my digital camera, because I have 30 some odd shots. I got to make everyone count. All right, these are the things I'm looking for in framing up, reading the lights, and then I'll go. And that has also transcended into taking digital photos, but also how I plan and prep for a shoot. It's all about that forethought going into the next project.
So you mentioned linear editing. What is linear editing? And explain to me like I'm 5.
So linear editing is, imagine you have 2 different tapes. So
like physical reels of tape.
Yep. So like a VHS tape here, VHS tape down here. I want to transfer a section of the top tape onto the bottom tape. I have to scrub through the top tape to get to the beginning point that I want. Select that as the end point, and then scroll through the end tape scroll through the top tape rather to the end point, and then select that as the out point, and then play through it, and then let it play through. And when it plays, it's transcribing to that bottom VHS tape. It is called tape to tape, linear editing, because you can't like pick up like, oh, this section of tape right here, put it right here, and kind of what you can do in a non-linear editing, where like we can take clips from the end of this recording and put it at the front without really having to do anything. It's all physical media when it comes to linear.
Okay. And they used to do like back in the day, right? It was those big reels of one, like they used to physically cut them, right? And then like tape them together to make like one final edit.
Yeah. I've never done that with film.
Okay.
And I applaud everybody who ever has, because doing just like tape to tape stuff gave me a whole new appreciation for nonlinear. Film would just like, I can't even comprehend the specificity and the how specific you have to be in that type of editing. To me, that's just wild.
Yeah, and that's I kind of have a similar appreciation. So I'm in mechanical engineering. We create construction drawings, but I've only ever used software. I've AutoCAD, Revit, 2D, 3D. drawing stuff out. So, and making that stuff is easier. It's easier to coordinate with the architect and all that stuff. But back in the day, I mean, even early, like late 90s, they were hand drafting everything. And I would not be in this industry if I had to sit there and, easel and drawing everything out. I suck at drawing, and, the time it takes and the precision it takes, you have to think things out a little bit more. It gives you the appreciation of, I can't imagine having to do that. The downside to that is, and maybe you run into a similar thing, is when you have to draft everything by hand, everybody knows that it's going to take a while to make changes. So people are less likely to make changes. And when they do, they know that you need an extended amount of time to fix what you've done, like physically erasing a bunch of stuff. So people are A, less likely to make changes, and B, giving you more time to make those changes. Whereas in the digital world, everybody knows you can make those changes rather than 2 weeks. It's going to take 2 hours. So changes happen all the time, and then everybody wants it immediately. So, I'm sure you run into that situation where it's like, I don't get it. You just got to slice it and move it, and then you're good to go, right?
Yeah. It's like throwing on a different song. All you're doing is changing the song, right? Well, it changes the entire tempo of the video. So we're going to have to do some fine tuning throughout it as well. And also, oddly enough, for the most part, finding the right music for a video is the hardest part of any type of video.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that too. So when you go into, let's do SummerSlam as an example, right? So CrossFit competition that I run, teams of 4, we have anywhere from 40 to 50 teams show up and do it. So you come in and you're doing, you're coming in, you're doing a highlight reel, you're doing some special team packages as well, but mainly a highlight reel of the day. So you have to take this 8-hour competition with 4 different workouts, all kind of boiled down to, a couple of minute, a 30-second, and then like a 3-minute teaser video. So going into that shoot, what's the thought process into going into that, knowing you have to take 3 minutes? Like, do you watch every second of all of the video that you record, or when you're recording it, do you go, okay, I definitely want to remember, what's that process look like for you?
It has gotten smoother throughout time. So I've been in CrossFit alone for probably 9, maybe 10 years. It feels like forever at this point. And I've been doing some type of filming throughout the entire time that I've done it. Mm-hmm. When I go and approach something like SummerSlam now, I usually have a song picked out well before the event, because I feel like I have a strong understanding of what it is. And what the tenacity we're trying to approach it with. Mm-hmm. And once I have that song in my head, it usually just gets stuck there and lodged. And then I feel like one of my strengths is that I have been able to anticipate different speeds, tempos, and motions just from reading people's body language in events like that. Mm-hmm. And when it works out really well. And when it fails greatly. But luckily those failures are few and far between now. And I get that shot, and then I write it down in my notes app on my phone, clip whatever, or I'll stop recording, do a thumbs up afterwards, and record the thumbs up, and then stop recording. That way, visually, when I'm scrubbing through, I can see the thumbs up. I'm like, oh, there's a clip before that. That's how I know that that's a clip that I at least liked in the moment. Mm-hmm. Doesn't always translate to a good shot for whatever the intensity is in the video. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things that I like that I shot that just sit on my hard drives because they didn't fit well with the video. The timing, the pacing wasn't right. It didn't feel like it fit with the rest of the video, and it just sits there. So my prep is really just getting into the mindset of like, okay, I've been an athlete before. This is what I'm looking for. As the video producer, I'm thinking, okay, this is what I would like to see. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes they marry very well. Sometimes they don't, and that's okay too. You just have to work with what you have in that situation, because I'm not going over to an athlete and saying, hey, do you mind if you just do a couple more box jumps for me? I really need a few more. Or, when you're doing the burpees next time, can you just do this instead? Like, that's a good way for me to get hit. And I don't want to do that. I also don't want to go up and interrupt an athlete during a competition either. Yeah. So it's working with what you got. But I feel like it's that what really helps it is that the athletes are enjoying themselves. Even when you see the sweat pouring down the face, they're on the third workout, still have the floater immediately afterwards. Like, deep down they're loving every second of it. And that's what helps make a good video.
I love that. So, this will be, you're doing SummerSlam again this year. So this will be your fourth year. I forget how many years I've even done it. So, I, as somebody, I'm programming the workouts, right? So this is my first year was easier because it's a blank slate. We hadn't done it in a couple of years. I'm new programming. We've changed the format. So kind of coming up with workouts was easier because I had everything in my tool bag ready to go. Now, as I've done movements and done styles of workouts, it's hard to keep things new and not kind of repeat same structure, same flow, same, rep scheme, whatever it looks like. How do you progress from not having like basically the same structure, same video style? Obviously the song helps, but how do you kind of keep things fresh from video to video and year to year?
It's got to tell a story from the start of the day to the end of the day. Like, yes, it's everybody's coming in, everybody's doing a workout, everybody's finishes one way or the other. There's a winner. Cool. But it's not about that. It's about how they got there. It's about the obstacles that they overcome during the day, during each workout. It's what I look for is those small moments of this really sucks, but you know what? I can do this. It's the moment of the teammate looking over, cheering on their other teammate who has that look on their face. It's the people hitting PRs. And like, for me, like, I know how exciting that is. It doesn't matter what mine is compared to yours. If it's a PR for you, like the excitement, the adrenaline, not just for you, but for everybody around you, especially in the CrossFit environment, like it is unmatched in my opinion. And those are the moments that I look for throughout the day. And yes, it is similar, but each one is very different. Music for me is always the driving factor behind that. Music is very important to me just in general. So finding the right song to help drive that home is very important. Last year's song was one of my favorite songs. And like, I actually have it downloaded on my computer to listen to just without the video from time to time again.
Yeah, maybe I'll slot that little video in here, right, and kind of clip it in.
Yeah.
I will not do it tape to tape. I will do it digitally. And, I am by no means a creative person nor an expert in videography.
It's all it takes is a little bit of curiosity and willingness to be wrong.
Well, I am wrong a lot, so I'm used to it. It doesn't make it easier, but it happens. So you were talking earlier about, before we talked about film to film or tape to tape, how you're getting into like actual film. You have 30 shots. Like, what's the difference between the physical film and like digital camera, and like which do you like more, and why do you why play with both of them?
For me, film, there's something about the image. When I'm doing photography, there's something about the image that I love, particularly the film that I buy. It's a Kodak Portra 400, and I shoot on a Canon AE1. It's like the stock camera from the 1980s or 70s, I think. Yeah, I think it was late 70s. Super simple to learn on, and I just go out and shoot with it. And I have rolls of film in my refrigerator still because it helps prolong the life. It's always fun, entertaining to open up my refrigerator and be like, oh yeah, I have film in there. And it just makes me think a little bit more about what I'm actually shooting, what I want to say with this photo, and what I hope comes out with how I'm reading the camera's reading the image, which is fun. It gives you a nice challenge to really focus on the moment, the photo, and what's going on. And that's what I love about photography. I used to do a lot of like photo for gyms. I still do every now and again, but I'm trying to make photography my hobby and not monetize it in any way because I enjoy it as that outlet of like, okay, I'm in the moment. This is allowing me to connect with everything going on or everything in this frame. And that is all I want, which I really appreciate with film. Digital, I kind of approach the same way now, but I feel less guilty when I take a few burst shots because I know I have a couple thousand shots to take versus these 30, I got to make count. Because it's not cheap to get film developed relative to the cost of a new SD card or an SD card that I've had for the last 6 years that it's now like 2 cents a shot or whatever it is, whatever the math comes out to. But there's like the immediacy of digital is really nice and really fun. And the creativity that it allows you to have through compositing and not After Effects, that's video, Photoshop. There's a lot you can do. But with film, it has really taught me to appreciate the moment of the photo and just like that singular frame you want to really make count. That's what I feel like sometimes is overlooked. Because a photo is a photo. Cool. I have a bunch of photos, not a bunch anymore. I'm taking them off the wall to get the floors redone. But I used to have a bunch of photos in my office here that I've taken that I personally enjoyed. I take the photos for me. That's all that I take my photos for. Sometimes I'll share them on Instagram and Facebook, and I share them because, hey, I like these. Maybe somebody else will as well. If they do, great. If they don't, doesn't bother me. That's fine. But like photo is one of those things where it's like, it's always just for me now, which I'm glad I found something to have that type of outlet for.
Yeah, that's cool. I can respect or understand the film aspect of it too. I've never shot with film. I mean, not really. And so I have the digital camera and the iPhone too. But before in SummerSlam, before I ran it, I helped with the pictures because our DJ Mike, he has like a nicer camera, and so he would do the pictures, but he had me one year do it. And the digital camera, I would take like 1,000 pictures, right, and just like snap away, and then the blurry ones would just automatically get deleted. So and I had no idea what I was doing. I started to learn about it. It was cool. It was fun. I enjoyed doing it. I bought my own Nikon little camera just because it was nice to have and do, and learning about aperture and focus and shutter speed and all that stuff and what those effects can do. So I had a little bit of fun doing it. I haven't touched it in a while, but I can respect and understand the film portion of aspect of it as well.
Yeah, there's a good quote in the movie Secret Life of Walter Mitty, where I forget the character's name, but he says he doesn't take a photo because sometimes he just likes to be in the moment. And that's what I feel is lost with digital photography, with the cell phones. I love that you can take a great photo with your cell phone. You can take a great video with your cell phone, but at the same time, like, don't forget to enjoy that particular moment because you're not going to get that back. You might be able to feel like you're reliving it, but there's nothing like being there then and there.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? iPhone cameras are getting ridiculously good. Like, I mean, is there an upper limit with the size of it, or like how good it can get versus a digital camera?
I mean, there are its limitations. They are getting better and better every year. I'm giving a talk soon to the Lansdale Business Alliance about social media and social media marketing. And one of the tools that I'm going to suggest is like, use your phone. Your phone is such a powerful tool. And I say that as somebody whose career is based off of video production. It's what I do full time. Use it. Start there. I know plenty of people who use their phone to create engaging content on social media, which is great. It has its limitations. You're not going to get this beautiful cinematic lighting. You're not going to get the crystal crisp, clear audio. There's going to be things that you're going to miss. And that's not simply because of the phone, but it's because lighting is very expensive. a strong microphone, incredibly expensive. Hiring the right people to do both of those, also incredibly expensive, relative to just shooting. So like if I had this growing up, like best thing you do is just learn how to create a story. It doesn't matter what you are shooting with, just make stories. That's all. People are obsessed with the next best gear. And to some extent, like you want decent gear, but if you know how to use it, learn how to tell a story. Use your phone, create an engaging story. That's all I care about.
Yeah. And so you talked about equipment and gear and all that stuff, and I want to get your opinion on this. I remember when I was looking for my camera, there was always Canon versus Nikon and the debate between that. Is there really a difference between the two, or is it kind of just like Jeep people and like Ford people kind of thing?
There is some truth to it, depending on the needs of the photographer. I have a Canon 6D Mark I, which is 13 or 14 years old at this point. Still works great. It is terrible in low light, but I don't find myself shooting in low light that often. So I don't need a great low light camera. Would I like something that works a little bit better and has a little bit better of a sensor? Sure. Sony has a great sensor. Sony shoots great in low light. It shoots better than the newer Canons in low light. Would I stick with Canon? Probably. And that's just because I've invested so much money in the lenses that I don't want to make the entire switch. It's really whatever works best for you and whatever you are photographing. I've been looking at getting a new camera, so it's a great question at this point in time. And the hardest thing for me is I want to buy a camera that's just a camera. I don't want to buy a video camera and a camera. I've already got my cine camera. That's great. I just want a camera. And that is like the hardest thing for me to find that has a sensor that I want in the price range that I'm looking for. Because Leica has some great only cameras, but they are incredibly expensive. And then I think it's Fujifilm has a great camera that is only a camera, but it's a micro four thirds sensor, which is it interprets the photo a little bit differently. And I don't want that sensor. I want a full frame sensor. And it also would force me to go from Canon to Fuji, and I don't want to do that. So I am stuck in this weird space where like the only way for me now to upgrade is to go get both. It's really like what works best for you. There are drawbacks to every camera that you use. I choose my stuff based off of color science, what I already have, and what feels good when I hold it. Like there's nothing terribly objective about it. It's all like user experience.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the case for most stuff when people are like, what's better, this or this? But like even like in the CrossFit world or anything like that, like, oh, what's better? Is it Noble or Nike? It's like, well, like what are you doing? What do you like to do? Like, you know, it's like I have different shoes for different workouts and stuff like that. Like it's really just dependent on your personal style. And then ultimately it's like a shoe's a shoe, a camera's a camera. Like there's little nuances, but if you're just, unless you're doing it professionally, and even then it's like, what are you doing? There's certain things that are different.
Yeah. For me, like, so I love Canon's color science. I love how it shows skin tones. There are ways to change that in post. I love my cine camera is a Blackmagic. I love the dynamic range that it has. So it's the dynamic range is essentially the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows in terms of black and white and everything between. And I also love how it interprets skin tones. And like, to me, that's very important when I'm making an image. It doesn't look overly contrasty. It doesn't look like the person's an Oompa Loompa. They look like a person. So for me, like, that's very important. Some people might value shutter speed. Like, okay, I'm shooting a high speed race. at some racetrack. Cool. You're going to want a super high speed, high frame rate camera that allows you to capture all those images. That's going to be the focus, not necessarily color science. It very much depends. It's like using gymnastic grips. Like, I don't like them because I don't like having them. I don't like the feeling between my hands, having that between my hands and the bar. I like being constant contact. But again, that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah. So speaking of like personal preference, what, somebody looking to possibly that is interested in photography, videography, like maybe there are freshmen in high school thinking about it. Like, what's the one thing you can recommend to them as somebody kind of getting into the industry?
Have fun. Get whatever lets you to record and have fun with it. I grew up with friends where we would just like take one of their video cameras out. We would go out into the woods and literally shoot in sequence our short films. And like, it was really just us goofing off, but it was exposure to it. We, at the very least, were creating these stories that allowed us to express ourselves creatively. Just start there. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I need this camera to do X, Y, and Z. My first camera was a mini DV camera. I used to have a drum kit. I sold my drum kit, bought my first camera, and like, it was in the midst of everything going towards digital, and it wasn't the best camera, but it was a camera and it worked, and that's what allowed me to tell stories and create stories. And you don't underestimate the power of a good story.
Yeah, I love that. So we talked about you shooting for businesses and you started a CrossFit gym. Let's talk about a little bit about your fitness journey, right? What's that look like? Have you always been in the gym, or is it something that you started kind of later in life?
Nah, I'll see if I can find this photo to send you. I was not the healthiest person going into, I'm trying to think, I think it was college. I hit about, for me at the time, it was 200 pounds. And I was like, I don't like how I feel. I'm not happy with how I look. So it started off with a little bit of vanity in that aspect. I was like, all right, I need to make a change. So I started off simply with like, I stopped drinking soda. I focused a little bit more on what I was eating. I went to the gym a little bit more. I went to LA Fitness. And like that kind of kickstarted it. And then once I was in college, I started off a little program called P90X. And like, that was a lot of fun. It was great at keeping me engaged. It allowed me to focus on like, okay, this is what I'm doing without any real explanation as to why. But it got me into a good position in terms of health and fitness. Like, I felt good. I was happy. I was sleeping well. I felt good about who I was in my own skin from like a physical standpoint. And like, oh, cool. I could do a pull-up. No, I used to not be able to do a pull-up. My idea of a pull-up was running up the wall and jumping and getting my chin over the wall or bar. And like, that was it. That was a pull-up. It was exciting. And that was it. Like throughout college, like that was all I did. Came home from college, went to another global style gym near where I lived. And it was cool. It was fun. It got boring. And a buddy of mine went to CrossFit. At the time, it was CrossFit Thermal. Now it's called CrossFit Conshohocken. He was like, come here, give this thing a try out, see what happens. I was like, dude, you bought into that stuff. How could you? How dare you? And I was like, okay, just because you're my friend, I will give it a shot. So I went in for an intro session, got my ass handed to me. I was like, I love every second about this. Yep. When do I start? And like, I've been doing that since, I can't even remember, it's 2014 or 2015. And like, I got into the best shape of my life before I met my wife, my now wife. And like, I was sleeping well. If I felt like it transcended into kind of every aspect of my life, where I felt confident in work, I felt confident in all the decisions I was making. I felt like I was learning a lot, not even just about health and fitness, but like body awareness is very important. It allowed me to kind of feel confident exploring different avenues of learning through like either podcasts, through reading different books, and just like different perspectives on just learning in general. And I ended up coaching for 7 or 8 years at that point, which also taught me a lot about just being in front of people. I was 25 or 26, coaching people in their late 30s, early 40s, 50s. I was like, why are they listening to me? And this is something that kind of stuck with me. And at the time, I didn't think much of it. But looking back on it now, it's like, wow, that was kind of profound. The owner of the gym, Vinny, early on, he was like, when you're coaching, it's your floor. You own the gym at that point. It's your class. Own it. I was like, okay, I can do that. So I did. And it wasn't until recently where I began looking back and like, oh, wow. Like when I go to different networking events, like this is how I approach every type of production that I'm on. It's like, this is my production. I'm working with people on it, but I'm owning this production. And this is how I'm going to approach it. And you don't always have to be aware of how it transcends into different avenues of your life, but it's super helpful in more ways than I could probably even recognize today.
That's cool. I like that. The you own it. It's your floor. You own it. Like I like that. I think that's good. And like you said, not even just in the gym when you're coaching, it's just any aspect of it. It's like if this is your project or you have a hand, like own your floor, own your space.
Yeah, and like it's not always gonna go that well.
Yeah.
I've coached some very large classes, so like you definitely feel like you're floundering at sometimes, but like that's part of the process. That's across any type of job. And like that was one of the best learning experiences I've ever had, as to be able to not just learn how to teach, but to learn how other people learn. Because when you're leading a production, when you're leading anything, like you have to meet people where they are. And that's how you're going to get the best result for them and from them. Because you and I learn probably very different ways. Or even if we learn very similar ways, there are nuanced differences things will translate very differently. So if I'm coaching you, it's my responsibility to find out where you are and meet you there and kind of build up from that foundation, which I feel like I hadn't been coached like that in a long time. Because as a coach, I felt like I stopped getting coached at one point. So I stopped coaching probably around 2022, I think it was 2023. And I went to a gym closer to my house, got coached again. And I love getting coached. It is the best thing that can happen to anybody. And unfortunately, there are some people that just don't it's in their head and they don't let themselves be coached. And honestly, the most humbling experience that I had was a little over a year ago. I had a disc bulge that kept me out of really anything for about 3 or 4 months. And coming back to that, I couldn't sit upright on the floor. I couldn't air squat. So I was relearning how to air squat. It's like, I love this. It's the foundation that you overlook so many times. It's like, oh, it's an air squat. Yeah, I can back squat 325. That's fine.
Yeah.
Can you air squat? And it's like having somebody show you those minute adjustments is super helpful. You just have to be receptive to being wrong, and that what you already know is also wrong. And I just see that prohibits a lot of people from making a lot of progress, whether it's professionally or in health and fitness, or in every other aspect of life.
Yeah, it's when you can't be humble and you think you know everything. That's when things start to get you in trouble. And as I'm a coach too, so I get like the people who just like they won't listen. They don't want to do it, or they'll do it for a rep or two and then they go back and it's like, I'm trying to help you. I'm not judging you. I'm not doing this. Like, I'm just here to help improve it. Like, if you're gonna do it, let's do it right. So it's like you said, you have to kind of meet them where they are sometimes and just go, all right, like this and this is what you're missing out on. If you're okay with that, then that's fine. I want to put my time and effort on people who are taking those coaching points and making those changes and improving. Like, I want to see improvement, not, because it's better for you. I want to help you. So it can be frustrating at time as a coach, but like you said, it is good to learn that and learn to work with the different personalities and all that. I know I've learned a ton. And you mentioned how, like sometimes you fail, like you're running this big class and things don't go well, but I've found that most of the time you're the only one that notices that, oh, this didn't go well, or I can improve this. And I think, you're coachable that way because you're kind of self-adjusting and self-coaching yourself. Like, what can I do better next time? So that kind of lends yourself to, how you are as a coach, and then also how you are as somebody who is being coached.
Oh yeah. And that to your point, like the only time when something goes wrong is you noticing it. I learned back, I used to play the drums and guitar very frequently. Now they just collect dust on my wall. At least the guitars do. I don't have drums anymore since I saw it from a camera.
Yeah.
But that was one thing that I was taught early on. Is like, hey, look, when you're performing, most likely if you ever make a mistake, nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
You're going to know, but nobody else is.
Yeah.
So you just have to let that moment pass and continue on. And that's fine. And that's, yeah, that is one of the most important things that anybody can do in any type of situation is like, hey, it's okay. You made a mistake. Big whoop.
Yeah.
Let's go. Continue on.
Yeah.
And then the coaching, it's one of my favorite things was like also believing in people when they weren't believing in themselves, and that type of look that they had on their face, like when they hit a deadlift PR or some type of PR. It's like, I didn't know I could do that. It's like, I'm glad you see now in yourself what I have been able to see in you. And now I hope you continue on that path.
Yeah, and trying to remember those moments when the down days do happen, where it's like, I feel like nobody's listening to me, nobody's improving, even though they're doing the right things, I'm telling them the right things. Those are the days where you can go back and be like, but it's in the long run, it's gonna happen. I had the same thing happen where somebody came in and they didn't even know what a clean was, and 3-6 months later, now years later, they're like clean and jerking, no problem. They don't have to think about it, and it's just like, remember when they came in and they're like, I can't do this, and you're like, no, like you can, just take the time, do it, and like there's nothing more satisfying that. And then when you go to the days where it's like just nothing is going right, you can go, but look at the good days that did happen, look at the good that we did have long term. That is the best and most rewarding part of the job.
Oh, by far. And that's why I did it for so long, because you get to not only meet so many people but impact so many lives, not just in the gym but outside, because they get to play with their kids, their grandkids, their dog, but also just like to remember those little moments.
Yeah, I love that. So, you'd mentioned you like to do a lot of storytelling with the videography, and you're working with businesses. What's coming up this year? What are you trying to do for the business? Like what your projects are you trying to focus on, and all that for the rest of 2025?
Rest of 2025, I am focusing on brand stories. So that's just a fancy term for like explainer videos about us, but it's a little bit more detail into like the heartbeat of the organizations that I work with, because I love to work with people that love what they do. So if somebody can explain to me their passion behind it, like, cool, I'm all on board, let's do this. But also doing testimonials, FAQ videos are something that I'm trying to kind of push a little bit more, because it's a great and easy way to help build relationships with people without you really having to do anything. And then I'm working on a documentary concept that I've been trying to figure out exactly how I want to share it. It's about one of my newer passions, which is fresh fruit and vegetables. My wife and I, we do our best to like eat from our garden. We support a bunch of local farmers. So we go to the Lansdale Farmers Market every other Saturday in the winter, every weekend in the summer, just because like they still have the farms come out and there is fresh food there. So like I'm going to go support as many local farms and farmers as I can. And my whole goal is like to try and shift people's concept of like having to go to the grocery store. You don't have to. It is more convenient for sure. And in some cases it's a little bit cheaper, but the cost incurred with going to the farmer's market, they actually get to keep a lot more of that dollar than when you go to the grocery store. I forget what the exact number is. I think it was like 10 cents for every dollar that you spend at the grocery store goes to the farmer, whereas I think it's like 60 or 70 cents at the farmer's market actually goes to the farmer at a farmer's market. And especially in Southeast PA, like we have a ton of farms around us. When I was in Venice, and this is kind of what launched it all. Somebody said, don't eat the meat or don't go to a restaurant and eat steak because it's from about 10 miles away, not on the island. And I'm thinking 10 miles away. Yeah. I don't know many farms around me that are 10 miles away. Right. And then I came home. I was like, wow, there are a lot of farms less than 10 miles away from me. So now we get beef from a farm about 7 miles away. We get a pig from a farm that's, I think, 12 miles away. We get a lot of the fruits and veggies from our garden because we have 3, but at this point, like 3 different gardens on our property. But we also supplement with different other farms. I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of different farmers who have great resources throughout the entire year. And all it takes is a little bit of effort. So I want to explore that, the health implications, the economic implications of what it is to be truly local, because I think the USDA defines local as 400 miles.
Wow.
Yeah. So like local is technically, I think it's Raleigh up to Boston.
Yeah.
Great cities in and of themselves, not local.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can go an hour. I think the furthest place I saw was an hour away, and that is for sea salt. So like that's a fair thing to travel an hour for, sea salt, or 100 miles or so. But everything else we really have nearby. And if it has to be shipped here and it's out of season, it's in the truck for several days to a week. So it's not the freshest. It's going to taste a little different. My favorite example is eating a fresh picked carrot. And we were talking about this before a few days ago, where like carrots don't really have flavor, at least in my opinion. When you go to the grocery store, it's like, yeah, it's orange water.
Yeah.
But we still have carrots in the ground that we planted in November or October of last year. And they're the most flavorful carrots you could ever eat. We have 2 beds of them. And whenever we need them, we just go out, dig them out, rinse them off, cook with them. It's great. There's so much flavor, so much nutrition that you miss out on because it's grown for volume rather than for flavor or for quality product. And that's just kind of what I want to explore through the documentary, is building out that story and how we can all be better in not just eating a little bit smarter, but also like, it actually doesn't take that much more effort to say, hey, where's a local farm near me? It might not be as convenient as going to the grocery store. Or, hey, you might want a tasty cake. I'm not going to say don't do it for a one-off type thing. But, hey, like if you can spend most of your money with the local farmer, do that.
Yeah, I think that's, most people don't really even know that. Like I never knew that about the, the local definition. So that, I mean, that's interesting. And it's one of those things, health, fitness, whatever, business, like taking the next easy step. Like, hey, we don't have to go full from grocery stores to fully from farms, but like, let's start figuring out what is near us. Like if that's step one, that's fine. Even farmers markets, we have one in Horsham too. It's like, okay, what can I not get from the grocery store and go and buy from them? And it just takes a little bit extra planning, but I don't need to go from full grocery store to full farmers. Like we'll figure it out. So let's slowly add a couple vegetables in there, and then figure, add some eggs and get some meat, like slowly figure that out over time. And then eventually get there, not try to make that radical change all in one shot.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to make that radical change in all in one shot, go for it. You're going to fail. I mean, anytime I've ever done that, that's exactly how it's gone. This has been a process over we've been in our house for 5 years. So this has been a 5-year process, and we're like finally almost there. Yeah. We were at the farmer's market once, and somebody saw us and they're like, "What are you doing here? You just get everything from your backyard." And it's like, not yet. We still have to go to the farmer's market. And it's also just good to support local businesses in that capacity, especially farmers, because they struggle with margins. It's like a restaurant industry where the margins are so thin, and it's not like a job where you wake up, you go to work, come home, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Their work is right outside the door. They just have to turn their head and look outside, and if it's a warm, dry summer, like they're in a lot of trouble. Yeah. If it's a warm, wet summer, they're also in a lot of trouble. And there's a lot of things that impact that just people don't think about.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of supporting local businesses, what if somebody who's looking to get some videography work, what's the best way to get in contact with you, reach out to you? And we'll include all the information in the show notes as well. But.
Sure. Best way is to email me, nate@shootingbreakproductions.com. You can also visit my website at shootingbreakproductions.com as well. See some of my work there. I'm on Instagram at, I think it's NLaBrusc, NLABRUSC. I created it so many years ago, I don't even remember anymore. Those are kind of the best ways to kind of see what I do. I post a lot about the garden on my Instagram too, and some about bird photography. Cool. So if you like either of those, go head there first.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. It's been fun. I didn't know a lot about photography, videography, so I learned a bunch today. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.